everyone. My name is Fez, and I'm a co-founder at Daily Delivery. We started Daily Delivery about 4 years ago with my younger brother Sal. Ever since, we've been able to secure deals with companies like Walmart, Just Eat, Foodora, and a bunch of other ones. But before I get into my story, I really hope that you guys don't put me on a pedestal, and I tell you why. First year, second year of school for me was a disaster. Failure back to back. I was on academic probation for God knows how long. I was worrying, that I'm not gonna make it out. I would knock on Azam's door probably 3 times a day, and super depressed, trying to figure out how am I gonna make it through. And I think there was a false notion that back in the day I figured if I fail in school, I'm gonna fail outside of school. And for that reason, I started ramping up my study habits, trying to improve my performance in school, to a point that by my 4th year, I was able to secure a teaching position as a teaching assistant back in my department. And I figured when I graduate, I'm going to be able to do something, because throughout the 4 years, I was super confused about what I would be able to do with that degree. My dad would ask me, so what do you do with an econ degree? I understand engineering, computer sciences, but economics, I don't really get it. And I'm gonna get into the government, do something, policy, whatever. And got out there. I figured that if I want to get into the government position, I need master's, PhD at minimum. And so I started looking at banks. I applied to 4 or 5 different ones. None of them, responded back. So I was very depressed. Went back to school, and I was super pissed off because, here I was, loaning 40 grand and having no return on my investment. And everybody would tell me, you gotta go reinvest another 30 grand, get your master's, PhD, and then come back for a return. And back then I started doing my honors program. Within the first year, I started working at Cactus Club. I would clean tables, work as a busboy, serve, you name it. And I knew that I love academics, and so I thought maybe I would become a prof at some point. And back then, my younger brother Sal, he's the more entrepreneurial one. He was developing apps and websites for family and friends. He came up with this idea that I want to have a one-stop shop where you can go do your grocery, laundry, liquor, you name it, right? And I love research. I think it was the only positive thing that I took out of my educational experience. And I started helping him out, figured out the numbers are quite promising, so I started devoting more time towards Daily Delivery. And within a year time, I realized that this is what I want to do. This is what I live for. And a part of that goes back to the environment that I was exposed to. Growing up as a kid, my dad was an entrepreneur, so I realized that I want to be an entrepreneur, and that was my calling, basically. Azam is going to hate me right now, but I dropped out. My younger brother dropped out a year earlier. My parents were devastated. Because back then I was still teaching, and they're like, if anyone could convince him, it would be you. Tell him, go back to school. You need to put the hat on. It never happened. So my parents got over that, but when we realized that the business was taking off, we put 120% of our time into the venture. We would be doing deliveries on 2 mopeds, literally for a year and a half under rain and snow. It was just the 2 of us. We would go to restaurants, and we would be like, if you want deliveries between 5 to 9, give this phone number a call and we'll do it. So no tech, no app, no website, none of that. And fast forward that to 4 years, now we have been covered in CBC, a bunch of newspapers from Business in Vancouver to Financial Post. And I think for the most part, when people come to us, they feel as if the idea was so brilliant that we made it overnight. But in reality, we worked our ass off. When we were working at Cactus Club, Sal was working at Rogue, we would save our money, and by the time we had enough money to buy the first scooter, we bought that and we started going door to door, doing sales and trying to get more restaurants on board. So if you think that school would be your golden ticket, it's not. My point is not that school is wrong. You gotta learn skill sets. Research, it's the most essential, skill set that you can take away from your school. But if you think that that certificate that you spent 30 grand, 40 grand on it is gonna give you your golden ticket out there, that's not gonna happen. And the time for you to start devoting time to your future is maybe a year or two before you graduate, because by the third year, everybody starts worrying. So I'm going to graduate in a year. What am I going to do? And that fear, unfortunately, pushes people back into school. So you become over-schooled, you go back, you start doing your master's, and then there's the PhD, and before you know it, you're like thousands of other PhDs out there with no special skill set. So if you have a calling, if you find a way to plan for your success from now, that would be the way for you to succeed in life. I'm not going to take much of your time anymore. I think I've already talked too much. So come to me. I'll be more than happy to help people get clarity towards what they want to do, what they like, what they don't like, and how can they get out of that situation. Thank you.